Imagine this headline: a herd of swine are drowned by Jesus. What a story that is we have today. And it's almost one of those stories that's so bizarre that I find myself saying they couldn't make this stuff up. You almost get the feeling that something like this must have happened. And I don't want to say we go literalistic in terms of this, but you just don't make this kind of thing up. Jesus goes across the boat, lands on the shore, and there's a man demon-possessed. And there's a lot of unique things about this man. The first one is he knows and understands who Jesus is before anybody else does. Because he says, "What do you have to do with me, Jesus, the Son of the Most High?" Before anybody else is really willing to think about who Jesus really is, this man, these demons, know exactly who he is. And the man sees Jesus and says, "Don't torment me." One that could possibly bring him healing, this man possessed says, "Do not torment me." In other words, stay away from me, get away from me. I don't want to be in your presence. I may be possessed, but I'm happy the way I am. I'm comfortable with my problems. I'm comfortable with my issues. I'm comfortable with my demons. And the process of healing, I don't know what that might be like, and I don't know what life might be like on the other side of being healed. And yes, you are one that could bring healing, but don't torment me. Get away. Isn't that the truth sometimes? We're more comfortable in our problems and in our issues and in our bad habits than we are wanting to think about the process of healing or changing or breaking those bad habits. You've heard that line, better the devil we know than the devil we don't. We'll just stick with our own problems because we know how to handle them. So stay away, you one that could heal me. And then the story continues. After this man says, "Stay away," Jesus has a little conversation and asks him what his name is. He says Legion because he's possessed by so many demons. And at this point, it's kind of interesting because now the demons, they're pretty sure something's going to happen here. Even though this man's saying, "Stay away," they're pretty sure that Jesus isn't going to listen to that. And so they start bargaining with Jesus. "All right, Jesus, we know you're going to do something here. Just don't throw us into the abyss. Can you figure out another plan for us? Just don't do that." And Jesus says, "Well, how about those pigs over there?" "Yeah, that's a great idea, Jesus. Send us into the pigs. At least we'll have a home. Just send us there." And so they get what they ask for. Jesus says, "Okay." And the demons get put into this herd of swine. And then the story just keeps getting more bizarre, more unsafe, more uncomfortable, because this whole herd goes into this lake and drowns. Those poor demons, they thought they could bargain with Jesus and get a good deal in the end, and they still end up in the abyss. And the man's healed, and the people around get frightened. And they're like, "Oh my God, look at what just happened here. Jesus," they say, "you scare us. Go away." It's hard to think about healing. It's hard to think about really wanting our demons to be released from us. It's hard to think about wanting to break our bad habits because they're just so comfortable. It's ice cream season for me. That's my excuse this time of year because there's so many fresh berries that it's okay this time of year to have ice cream in my house because I'm going to put so many fresh berries on them. Except I know it's just a bad habit because sure enough, I think it was Saturday night, headed to bed at 10:30, but I got out that carton of ice cream and just ate it out of the cupboard. And I don't want Jesus to mess with that bad habit right now. Stay away, the berries are going to be here for a while. We get comfortable in our skin, even when our skin really isn't comfortable at all. I was reminded of a story from the Chronicles of Narnia, the story of Eustace. Eustace was a cousin to the main characters in the Chronicles of Narnia, Lucy and Peter and Edmund, and I forget the fourth one. Susan, thank you. Didn't have time to double check Susan this morning. But when you get down to some of the other stories, the one that's called The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, they start their journey, Lucy and Edmund, they go to their cousin's house, to Eustace's house. And nobody really wants this to happen. They don't really like their cousin, and their cousin really doesn't like them. Eustace is just a squirrely, difficult kid. He's not happy with anything, and the only good he sees out of his cousins coming to visit is that he can bully them. But once they gather together, they're jetted off into an adventure. And Eustace thinks this adventure is awful because they're on a ship, the Dawn Treader. And he thinks it's just horrible, and he's miserable, and he's sick, and the food is no good, and he's not comfortable, and he complains and complains and complains, and he isolates himself from everybody else. And they eventually land on an island, and Eustace just says, this is ridiculous, and he wants to get away from everyone, and he goes and wanders off on his own, and he meets up with a dragon who's dying, and dies right there in his midst. And Eustace, this is all kind of new to him because he's never read fantasy. He doesn't really understand about dragons and caves and treasures, but once the dragon has died, he explores in the cave and he discovers all of the treasures. And suddenly he kind of lights up. He's like, well, this is cool. Because he's kind of have a greedy side to him. And so he stuffs his pockets with all the coins that he can and all of the riches. And then he takes this beautiful bracelet and he shoves it up his arm. And then he falls asleep. And he's awakened by this terrible pain in his arm. And he can't figure out why that bracelet hurts so much now. And he goes down to a pond and he looks into this pond and suddenly he realizes that he's covered with scales. And that he's a dragon, that the demon that he has been embracing in his life of being greedy and mean and complaining all the time, that he's taken it on in his skin, and he's now this dragon. And he's trying to figure out, my word, what am I going to do? And how am I going to explain to my cousins and help them believe that this is really me, now a dragon, and that, well, I won't hurt them, but I might need their help. And eventually they meet up, and he does manage to communicate to them that he's really Eustace, that he's not this dragon. But there he is in this scaly skin, and the interesting thing that starts to happen is he realizes the demon that he's been putting on himself during his childhood, how he's really been kind of mean and never willing to help out and never willing to do chores and just complained all the time. And he realizes that hasn't gotten him anywhere, and he actually starts changing as a dragon. He starts figuring out ways he can help. and ways he can help out his cousins and help them get food and help them get wood and trees that they need for shelter and to rebuild their boat. But he's still this dragon. And he's wondering, when they go to leave, how am I going to fit on the boat? What's going to happen to me? And this goes on for a while, and then one night, he gets visited by that wonderful lion in the story, Aslan. And he sees Aslan, and he's not sure at first. He's almost a little scared, even though he's a dragon. This lion still kind of scares him. But they meet up, and he's ready. He's ready for something to happen. He's ready for this skin, these scales of these demons he's carried in his life to be shed off of him. And Aslan says, we can do this. You just need to take your clothes off, your skin off, and we need to get you in some water. And so Eustace does this. He gets one layer of his skin off. But then it comes back again, and so again he has to scratch, and he peels off another layer of the skin, and he's ready to go in the water, but he looks, and he's still covered with these scales, and he does it a third time, and finally he's like, it's not working. Isn't that what happens? We think we've peeled off some bad habit, some demon in our life, and then all of a sudden we look and it's like, oh my gosh, it's here again. How did that happen? And so finally Aslan says, I can help you. And Aslan has to take off that final layer of skin. And he shows them the well that he can get into. And as Eustace tells the story to Edmund, he shares it this way. He says, well, Aslan peeled the beefly stuff right off, just as I thought I had done myself the other 3 times, except this time it hurt a little bit. But there it was, lying on the grass, only ever so much thicker and darker and more knobbly looking than the others had been. And there was I, as smooth and soft as a peeled switch and smaller than I had been. Then he caught hold of me. I didn't like that much because I was very tender underneath now that I had no skin on. And he threw me into the water. And it smarted like anything, but only for a moment. After that, it became perfectly delicious. And as soon as I started swimming and splashing, I found that all the pain had gone from my arm. And then I saw why I turned into a boy again. And he dressed me, and he put new clothes on me. And I realized it really wasn't a dream after all. Peeling those skins of those parts of our character that we just know are destructive and difficult. And sometimes we need God's help to peel them off. And the beauty of the story is that God is there to be with us, to peel off those layers of those parts of our character that aren't life-giving, those parts of our character that are destructive. Peeling off the layers, it's something we need to do as individuals, but it's also something we need to do as a community of faith. Because as communities of faith, we have our own demons, our own thick, gnarly skin that needs to come off. And I found myself reflecting after Friday night's walk of remembrance that when the United Methodists that were gathered here for annual conference and when members of the community came together at the convention center outside on the plaza on Friday night, this walk of remembrance was a way of the United Methodist Church, at least here in Oregon, Idaho, of peeling off some of those layers, those demon layers, if you will, of people thinking of the church as being exclusive, the church being judgmental, the church being full of any bigotry or hate. I felt like every step we took, we were sending a message of wanting to peel off our layers, to peel away and drown our demons, and to communicate another message, a message of inclusivity, a message of love, a message that says we're not going to tolerate hate or violence. The words of our bishop helped echo that, but I'd have to say the words that ended up touching me the most were ones that were written in the newspaper article that hopefully you saw on Saturday. It was words that came from some of the members of the community that came out to be part of that walk. One of the words simply said this: "I'm not part of the faith community, but I think religion can be beautiful and awesome." A person from the community named Allison, who simply heard what we were doing. And then the second one from a person named Sarah. And she said, "I am an atheist, but I just wanted to support it. I think it is that they're being inclusive instead of pushing away and blaming the LGBT community or Muslims." Isn't that amazing? When we dare to peel away our own demons, the community, people that have felt pushed away, find themselves saying, if that's who they are, I want to be a part of that. If we dare to confront the demons that are in front of us and dare to drown them, it's amazing the lives that can be touched. Someone who says, I'm not part of a faith community. Another one who says, I'm an atheist. But a time of drowning hate, a time of drowning bigotry, a time of drowning violence, and putting on clothing of love and inclusivity and grace, that I'll be a part of. The question is, will we keep drowning our demons? The good news is we don't have to do it on our own, because we know every time we try to do it ourselves, they come back. But if we keep praying for God's presence to help us and guide us in peeling away the thickest and ugliest skin, God will make it happen. So let us put ourselves out there as people of faith, as a community of faith, and confess that we have demons to drown and to be vulnerable enough to allow God to peel away that destructive skin and drown it and clothe us anew. Clothe us with gentleness and kindness and mercy and justice and love. I must confess, I don't know if I've ever been all that excited to preach a sermon on drowning the demons. But you know, it's exactly what we needed today. We have demons to drown. But the good news is, God rips it off of us, tosses us in some water, and clothes us anew. And that, my friends, is good news. Thanks be to God. Amen.